on there is fine, you can just start. We'll present, or we'll just start as a subcommittee, and then pray that enough people get in for us to get a quorum. I don't have anything that we're execing on, so it's just to hear the bills, so as long as we can get a quorum at some point.
You're gonna love this bill.
I love you, so it's gonna be great. Okay, we're going to go ahead and not quite call to order the Committee on Government Efficiency, but we are going to start as a subcommittee. We are currently lacking a quorum, but we're going to get started anyways in an effort to stay efficient and try to see if we can't wrangle some other senators down here so we can go ahead and start. But we are going to start with Senator Carter. She is presenting Senate Bill 1062.
Yeah, thank you. Senate Bill 1062 establishes the Hope Missouri Act to create a dedicated office within the state's Office of Administration. This initiative aims to support Missouri residents in achieving economic self-sufficiency by connecting them with community-based resources, including nonprofits, faith-based organizations, and private sector partners. Modeled after successful programs in other states, the bill positions the Commissioner of Administration as the officer's director, focusing on personal guidance to help individuals overcome barriers and reduce reliance on government assistance. So the HOPE initiative was something that was a work of the heart from Casey DeSantis, who they implemented this in Florida. The numbers are staggering and how impactful this legislation has been. They saw a 40% decrease in services and 30% reduction of kids going into foster care, simply because I believe, and as I think you do, Madam Chair, that we don't have a resource problem, we have a connectivity problem. A lot of times the neighbors don't know that there's a kid down the road who has a need, that the grandmother doesn't have an extra bed for her grandchildren who she's has in foster care, things like that. And so this closes that gap, creating synergy with not-for-profits, churches, and community members with the needs with the department. So I'm really excited about this legislation. I've talked to other states that have passed similar legislation, and they're seeing the positive benefits of it as well. So I have a meeting with the governor tomorrow about it. I've talked with the Department of Social Services, and they're excited about this as well. So just thank you for the time, and thank you for hearing the bill.
Sure. Just, Senator Lewis, we're starting as a subcommittee, so we could just keep going as we're waiting for a quorum, and we just heard the presentation of Senate Bill 1062. No, I'm not. I'm glad you're here. Don't apologize. Senator Carter.
Happy Monday, huh?
Exactly. Happy Monday. I have a question for you. We have had DHSS, or particularly the Children's Division, kind of ebb and flow in their efforts to provide preventative care. And have you gotten feedback from the Children's Services about having this be housed in the Office of Administration rather than within there? Because I do think that they are allocating some resources, and they have been saying they've been working on this, although frankly I haven't seen any tangible outcomes of those efforts. But I don't want us, I'm worried about the state funding efforts in two departments if, we need somebody to be, if Children's Division isn't going to be effective at doing this, then it makes sense. Let's put it in OA. My concern is I don't want to then fund a program in OA and fund the program at the same level if they're doing it currently in Children's Division.
We have had that discussion, and we'll continue to look at this. Like I said, I've got to meet with the governor tomorrow about it. But
Great.
The beauty of it is we have an ebb and flow in leadership, right? And so if it's in a consistent office, whether that's underneath the governor or in the office of OA, then we have that continuity of leadership. But then also they're already trying to push out some of the platforms to utilize the communication. They've been working on this, so this will codify it to make it more of an initiative that we're able to implement statewide.
Okay.
Like I said, I think it helps in multiple ways. We talk about the budget crisis. We've been talking about that a lot. It costs about, I was given estimates of $4,000 a year for kids in foster care.
The fiscal notes never reflect the savings, do they?
Exactly. And so I was told that if you got the bougiest of programs implemented in regards to this, what they implemented in Florida was $1 million to implement, but you would see a return on that investment very quickly when you're able to keep 30 to 40% of a reduction in kids going into foster care.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Any other questions?
Is that my phone?
It is. I was trying to get him to bring
No
it to you.
worries. I don't need it right
Okay.
now.
That's okay. We'll just set it over here. Where were you sitting?
Just
Right
wherever.
here is great. Any other questions for Senator Carter? Okay, thanks so much. Who's here to testify in support?
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Jared Hankinson, Vice President of Government Affairs for the Missouri Chamber of Commerce. I will be brief. I want to thank the Senator for bringing this legislation forward. You've heard the success that programs like this have been in other states, and we've communicated with our chamber colleagues in other states to hear about their support for this and the massive success that it has been there. The Missouri Chamber and chambers across the nation view legislation like this as a workforce development, economic development tool, streamlining efficiencies within government, integrating workforce tools into the state and making sure that we promote government efficiency is essentially a workforce development and economic development tool that the Chamber is very happy to support, and I'm happy to take any questions with that.
Any questions for this witness? Seeing none, thank you for your
Thank
testimony,
you.
sir. Anyone else here to testify in support? Going once, going twice. Anyone here in opposition? Last call. Anyone here for informational purposes only? Seeing none, thank you, Senator Carter, for your presentation. We're going, that'll conclude our hearing on Senate Bill 1062. We're going to go ahead and pause and take roll with a quorum now present. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Senators Coleman,
Here.
Hudson, Bean,
Here.
Brown, Carter, Lewis. Here. Williams. Yeah, she's here. We don't have to say her, so there's four.
Okay, with a present of 4 members, with 4 members present, we have a quorum. And with that, I'm going to hand the gavel over to Senator Bean.
Thank you, Senator. Next up is Senate Bill 1126 by Senator Coleman. Senator Coleman, you can proceed when you are ready. I've got 1126, if that'll work for you.
Thank you so much, Mary Elizabeth Coleman, representing the 22nd Senatorial District. And Senate Bill 1126 is a culmination of a survey that was done last year. Really, after we formed this committee, I hadn't realized that this was going to be a new committee in the Senate or what the purpose of the committee was going to be. And so we thought we'd start by doing a survey of what laws were outdated, what funds were outdated, and what property is the state not currently using, and making sure that we're able to give the power to not have to come every single time we want to sell or convey a piece of property. We have on the Senate calendar this year's conveyance bill. We frequently have a conveyance bill that happens over and over again, where anytime an agency has non-productive real property that they're wanting to convey, it has to be approved by the General Assembly. So this is creating an alternate process with strong legislative oversight still to make sure that when the state has non-productive property, it can go ahead and be reallocated into a useful way. So with that, I'm open to any questions.
Thank you, Senator. Any questions for the Senator? Senator, go ahead.
Good afternoon, Senator. How are you?
Great, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. So I was just curious, how did you choose these funds specifically?
Senator, I am not quite there yet. We can talk about the funds. I am talking about abandoned property. So 1126 is the abandoned property bill. 1127 is the fund bill. But I have lots of good information about that in just a moment. And frankly, I don't know my bill numbers either. So
My apologies.
we're still learning. We're all still, it's too early in the session for us to have memorized our bill numbers.
I know, and they're all one number off, so, okay.
Yes, they were my first 3 bills because this is my priority to get these items across the finish line. And I do kind of think of them, as I said in the presentation, as cleanup of where do we start moving forward. And so, sorry about that.
Yep. Okay, well, thank you, and my apologies, and at least you know what's coming with your next bill.
Yes, ma'am.
Any further questions for the Senator on a Senate Bill 1126? Hearing none, anybody here to testify in favor of Senate Bill 1126? Please come forward.
Camelia with Americans for Prosperity. I'll be brief about this because I think this is just common sense. It's good management of government property, and so we're in support of anything to that end.
Thank you. Any questions for this witness? Seeing none, thank you for testimony. Next up, in favor of Senate Bill 1126. Seeing none, anybody here in opposition of Senate Bill 1126? Seeing none, anybody here for informational purposes on Senate Bill 1126? Seeing none, Senator, do you have any closing comments?
No, sir.
That will conclude the hearing on Senate Bill 1126. Next up is Senate Bill 1127. Senator, you can proceed when ready.
Okay, great. So I have a lot more information about the sweeping of funds bill. So did you guys get a copy of this chart? I don't know if we made copies for you. Jared's got them. He's going to hand them out to everybody. So I just want to walk through. Obviously, I am not the state treasurer, so I don't have information to, I'm sorry, let me start over. I'm presenting Senate Bill 1127, which is a bill that is looking at abandoned funds. And we put a request to legislative research and to the treasurer's office, hey, let us know what funds have not been used. So what happens is through various mechanisms of the law, we'll have dedicated funds that are created. They can be created in any number of ways. The most frequent is statutorily through a dedicated fee, or as a collection for federal funds, or even certain revenue generating from the political subdivision, so that then people can kind of move forward. They can also be created if somebody leaves a bequest to the state, and they have a goal that they would like the state to come in at some point and do something, and so they'll leave a bequest, a gift. Often it's in memoriam, but sometimes it's while they're living. And then the state has that to forward this idea at some point that somebody would like to see done. So these funds, what I put out a letter or a request to everybody, hey, please let me know what funds have been abandoned, what have been created and no one has done anything with, what is just sitting vacant. And we got some, really great feedback. So if you look at this list, you're going to see funds that have not had any activity since 2020. So the Dairy Revitalization Fund has a whopping $5,196.76 in it. That's obviously not moving the needle for the long-term well-being of the financial state of the state, but it is really prudent that we don't just leave $5,000 of the taxpayers' dollars just sitting in a fund that hasn't been used. Apple Merchandising, similarly in 2019, has $21,330.76. We have the Manufactured House Conservation Recovery Fund that has a little bit more in it, $52,439. It hasn't been touched since 2019. The Workers' Memorial Fund goes back to 2019 as well. It has a little bit more of $127,000, but it's not enough to be able to fund that memorial, and there has been no substantive work that we have seen in the last now 7 years. I want to draw your attention also to the State Document Preservation Fund. That's $5,122.46. That's not saying if we get rid of this fund, we are not going to preserve our state documents. I assure you the Secretary of State has a significant ongoing budget that allows for the preservation and archival of our state documents. But this particular sub-fund that would be swept of that $5,000. There are a number of funds that are listing as 2016 as the last activity, but I want to highlight to everybody that's not actually the last activity. We don't know when the last activity is. What we have is that is the last date that that's the last point at which the software can recognize that there was no activity. So there was no inactivity in 2016. There could have been no activity further back than that. We just don't have any data on that. And because of the nature of term limits, not many of us, I guess we could track down Senator Searpoy and ask him if he remembers anything from his time in the House, or maybe the Secretary of State had served in the Senate and the House at that time, but not a lot of us stick around for 16 years. And so we don't have any institutional memory of what that is. So again, this is about good governance. There is one fund that you guys are going to see removed from this bill, and there's a Senate substitute that has been distributed to you all that will show that removal. In the fiscal note document, there was a note that the abandoned mine reclamation fund is being removed. That's the biggest fund that was initially in that. It's about a little over $5 million that would have been allowed to be able to be swept into it. But I think it would be a bad idea for us to do that. And the reason it would be a bad idea is because that is the repository that allows us to receive and spend federal dollars. in order to be able to rescue. Yeah, it's not quite a Superfund site, but that idea is what that's for. And so although it has a significant amount of resources and it has laid vacant or fallow for a significant amount of time, it would be imprudent of us to include that in this bill. And so the Senate substitute reflects the removal of that item. And with that, I'm open to any questions.
Thank you, Senator. Just a point of clarification, Senator Sarah Poy Mike could talk about the horse and buggy parking fund and what they did with that. But anyway, that's for another deal.
It's more fun if he's here, isn't it?
Any questions for the Senator? Senator Lewis.
And then it looks like in the sub that you are removing the deaf and hard of hearing.
I am. You mentioned to me that you had some concerns about that as well. I'm sorry, I should have highlighted that, so I have removed that. It is also frankly not being utilized, but that they cared enough to reach out to you and said, please don't do that. I'm happy to not include it. Again, part of what we're trying to do is make sure that we're getting rid of truly abandoned funds, things that are not being used at all, not trying to take away active programming. I think that we should have a conversation about things that get started that never get completed. And what we do with those things, but I don't want to do that if there's a group of people who are actively working on something.
Okay, well, Senator, thank you so much for including my concerns. I really do appreciate it.
Of course.
And then back to my question on this bill. So how did you, okay, so you said you reached out to a bunch of people. Like who all did you reach out to? Who did you hear back from?
Sure, so we reached out to the treasurer
Okay.
and legislative research and said, please let us know what lists of funds have not been utilized. And they got back to my office with this information. So I don't personally know anything about Apple merchandising. I hadn't heard of it before, but when it was brought to my attention that there was $21,000 sitting in a fund that hadn't been used, we went ahead and said, yeah, I think that makes sense. Let's get rid of things that aren't being used.
Okay, all right, thank you so much.
Yes, Senator.
Any further questions for the Senator? Seeing none. Anybody here to testify in favor of Senate Bill 1127? Please come forward. Don't forget to leave your witness form filled out.
Thank you. Not to be predictable, but Camellia with Americans for Prosperity. And we used to always say, a penny saved is a penny earned. And I know we don't have pennies anymore, but the same principle applies to government as well.
Any questions for this witness? Seeing none, thank you for testimony. Next up, in favor of Senate Bill 1127, please come forward. Seeing none, anybody here in opposition to Senate Bill 1127, please come forward. Seeing none, anybody here for informational purposes? Seeing none, Senator, do you have any closing comments? That will conclude the hearing on Senate Bill 1127. Up next is Senate Bill 1350, also by Senator Coleman. Senator Coleman, please proceed.
Thanks, guys. I think we won't hear any of my bills for a while after this. Thank you for your patience in indulging all of these. This is Senate Bill 1315. It is known as the Pupils' Rights, Federal Protection of, I'm going to start all over. This is work that I also started last year. Right now we have federal law that requires our school districts to comply with certain provisions, and we even have state statutes that require our state to comply with certain things. And one of those things is making sure that parents know about what their kids are being subjected to into school, including surveys, collection of data. More and more, we are becoming aware about how important it is that we are protecting people's privacy and that people have more control over the data that's created about them. And so right now, the PPPRA has some federal enforcement tools, but it has not been used. And we don't have enforcement tools in Missouri. And so a statute that doesn't have any way for it to be enforced is a statute that is just precatory language. It's something that we say, we wish you would do this, but if there's no way for a family to ensure compliance with it, then there might as well be no rule. And so this is an effort. I think that this is a really important thing to make sure that if we have something in state statute, that there is an enforcement mechanism for it. And so this is attempting to create an enforcement mechanism. It's creating a fine of $500 for each gross negligent violation and $2,000 for a violation that occurs intentionally or neglectful supervision. So it is the school district's policies. It is the school district's responsibility. It is their obligation to let parents know about what's happening in the school district and in the classroom. And if they are failing to do that negligently, or if they're intentionally choosing to do that, then we should make sure that there's a reason to comply. I wish that we lived in a world where people did what they were supposed to just because they were supposed to. Unfortunately, that doesn't seem to be the case. And so this is putting some teeth into existing law, not changing existing law.
Any questions for the senator on Senate Bill 1315?
I would have
Senator Carter.
What does the penalty provision look like?
It's that $500 plus court costs and attorney's fees.
So if tell me what kind of.
Yeah, so for example, a way that this would come up is if, for example, if a school district was sending out a survey about sexual activity of teenagers and there wasn't a notice to parents first that this was going out so that they could opt out of it, then there would be a fine associated with that. And it would be either $500 if it was grossly negligent, meaning, you should have known better, you did know better, and you just didn't do your job, or it would be $2,000 if it was intentional. So for example, if there was evidence that the school district knew that parents would be upset about that, and so they chose not to do it. Really the most important piece of this is the court costs and attorney's fees, because the harm that is caused isn't a pecuniary fine for those children. The harm that is caused is a lack of privacy, and the genie can't get put back into the bottle at that point. And so what we're wanting to make sure is that there's an ability to have an injunction. Most parents can't afford to hire a lawyer, and most lawyers are not going to go against the deep pockets of superintendents electing to use taxpayer dollars to back up their negligence. Or their intentional tort. And so this is saying, you know what, we're going to create a specific fine available, and we're going to create a pot of money to make sure that you have to, you pay reasonable costs. I think, one of the things that's important to remember is sometimes you'll get people will complain and they'll say, well, why should there be attorney's fees that are able to be awarded? Well, this is the way this is the way the American legal system is set up, is that you each should pay your own attorney's fee unless the judge says, no, actually, we're going to allow you to award them, or statutorily that you're able to allow them. And in this case, there's such a differential and power dynamic between parents and the school district that it's important that we make that retroactive, so that if this happens, that they can be sued and that attorney's costs would be covered. And in fact, frequently that would probably be the end of it. My guess is that what happens is as soon as we put teeth into following the PPPRA, along with Missouri state statutes, school districts will stop this behavior because they're no longer going to be willing to risk it. Unfortunately, what we have seen again and again in our school districts is a failure to comply unless they are facing litigation. For some reason, they are not concerned about the state legislature or the governor's office or even the Department of Education. They are only concerned about litigation. And so this is going to hopefully motivate them to follow the existing law.
I would like to see, Senator, where parents have to be notified and opting into a lot of these surveys and the data that's collected. At one point
Good news, there's a bill on the calendar that would do that. Senator Bratton has filed that bill. I think
is that part of the Parents' Bill of Rights?
That's part of the Parents' Bill of Rights. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah.
Any further?
And actually, I think, yeah, that's right. He has part of that as well, a first notification. But what's frustrating is right now that is existing law. You currently want to have that, but the PPPRA currently requires advance notification of this type of disclosure, and school districts are just not doing it. And they're not doing it because there's no way to find them, and nobody can afford to hire a lawyer and enforce them to do it.
No, I understand. I
So-
love the two components. So
Yeah,
thanks.
absolutely.
Any further questions, Senator? Seeing none. Anybody here to testify in favor of Senate Bill 1315? Please come forward. Seeing none. Anybody here in opposition of Senate Bill 1315? Please come forward. Seeing none. Anybody here for informational purposes or opposed? Information purposes, please come forward.
There was room, Otto.
Hey, Madam Chair, members of the committee, Otto Fajan on behalf of Missouri NEA. I want to speak just briefly a kind of a note of concern about the possible impact of this bill. As the sponsor noted, probably if this goes into law, you probably won't see a lot of occasions. The circumstance that I think has gotten the most attention, as far as I read, isn't directly covered under the PPRA, and so this bill kind of expands that. Most districts already have a policy in place to implement the PPRA, but that's mainly about surveys that aren't directly related to instruction. It's more like for counseling or assessment purposes. The concern we have on the House side, they've put a lot of attention to some other topics this session. And one of those areas is teacher certification. And one of the things we found out is that even today, as we are sitting here, well over 4,000 of our teachers are teaching in Missouri public schools without a certificate. And that's partly because we're not able to find, amongst all the people who do have a certificate, people who are still willing to teach in the public schools. One of the things we always watch out for when you all are considering legislation is the potential collateral impact of provisions like lawsuit provisions. We just want to offer the concern that even though we think the direct language here is kind of restricted to an activity that's probably it's rare and would probably disappear, when teachers across the state see the legislature passing bills to allow, in this particular case, allowing individual employees to be sued, that's going to have an impact on how many young people decide to go ahead and pursue a career in teaching. So we just wanted to, as you consider this bill, factor that into how you address this situation. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for this witness?
I have a question.
Senator Carter.
Does today happen to be your birthday?
Yes, I'm 21 for the third time.
Very good. Well, I just want to take an opportunity to wish you a happy birthday.
Thank you,
Thank
Madam
you for your
Chair.
testimony.
You took my thunder. I was going to finish up with that, but anyway, any further questions for the witness? Seeing none, thank you for testimony.
Thank you.
Anybody, and happy birthday. Anybody here else to testify for informational purposes for Senate Bill 1315? Seeing none, Senator, do you have any closing comments?
Yeah, I would just caution that individual liability is something that all workers deal with and that all businesses deal with, and our private sector and political subdivisions already have extensive experience dealing with it. And insurance policies cover both the individual and the institution. And so most of these, I mean, unless it were so badly egregious that the school district said, you know what, we are not going to cover our insurance is not going to cover your defense. I just think it's a little disingenuous that there's an argument that's going to be hard to find people to do work if they're on the hook for following the law. I mean, I think I trust our school teachers. I'm the daughter of 2 public school teachers. I think very highly of our public school teachers, and I don't think that it's going to have them step away from their vocation of educating our children if they were required to follow the law. And even if it were, that is an insurable occasion. So anyways, thank you.
Thank you, Senator. This will conclude the hearing on Senate Bill 1315.
You want to close out the committee?
No further business coming before the committee. I would move that we adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those opposed, aye. All those opposed, nay. We are adjourned.